Oh,
Hi, Jamie Kane.
And I see Kyle, so there he is. I'll bring him in.
There's 3.
I see Olga, so that's 4.
4.
And that is
Hi, Olga.
Did you get Kyle?
I did, but he's not moving over for some reason.
I think you did.
Yeah,
You
I
did
don't-
Jim instead.
you did Jim instead.
Hi.
Hi,
I don't
Olga.
have George with me because I have COVID, so
Oh,
can't come here.
I did do Jim. I don't understand.
Should I be
Okay.
bounced out right now and I should come in later?
Yes.
We'll take you out.
Hi, everybody.
hi, Tim.
Hello.
I
Bye.
hope it's not too bad.
No, well, I'm like triple vaccinated and boosted and all that. So it's like a head cold and I'm a little tired and that's it.
All right.
I'm with you, Bob. I just got over it myself.
Oh, I'm glad you're feeling better.
It's been
Yeah.
through all of us, right?
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody.
Kyle,
my
are you
second time.
by chance on the phone? Or are you on the computer? Or...
No, but I'm on the computer. Let me see what's going on.
Yeah, it's not letting me promote you as a panelist.
No, he's
He's
there.
in.
He's
He's
there.
in.
Yeah,
He
no,
just doesn't-
I've allowed him to talk, but he can't show his picture. So
Oh, okay.
he doesn't have the full. Well, now he's moving.
There he
is.
is.
Smiling.
There he
Yeah.
is. Hi, Kyle.
All right,
Hello.
you have 5 members. Michael Spall is here as well.
I'm
That's
here,
right.
but I can't be seen right now. See what's going on.
Useful man.
Okay. So we can get started. We do have 5 members. So good evening and welcome to the Village of Ossining Zoning Board of Appeals regular meeting of June 14th, 2022. The board is meeting via video conference using the Zoom platform in accordance with the governor's executive orders. There is no public participation in person tonight. Rather, the public can watch the live meeting online through Zoom. Notice of tonight's meeting was published as required and posted on the village website. The web notice included instructions for members of the public to access the meeting and participate in any public hearings. Comments will only be taken during the public hearing portion of the meeting as usual. In order to participate, please do the following. Members of the public attending online via the Zoom app may use the raise hand feature at the appropriate time if you would like to make a comment. The feature is located at the bottom of the screen. Those attending via conference can press *9. The meeting host will see that your hand is raised or that you have pressed *9 and will unmute those waiting one at a time so that you can speak. Lastly, comments can be emailed during the meeting to Jaime Martinez at jmartinez, and that's MARTINEZ @villageofossining.org. Any written comments can be read into the record. Any written comments will be read into the record. Please note that tonight's meeting is being recorded and a video and transcript will be provided at a later date. There are a few ground rules, and the ground rules are, in order to keep this meeting orderly and ensure we get a clear recording, please follow these ground rules. When you are given access to speak, please state your name and address. If you are speaking during the public hearing, please limit your comments to the matter which is the subject of the hearing. If any speaker is inappropriate, they will be immediately cut off and their access is removed. To the board members, please mute yourselves when you are not speaking. Also, to the board members, I will call on you one at a time to speak to avoid everyone speaking at once. If you wish to speak at any time when I'm not calling on you, you may use the raise hand function or literally just raise your hand so that I can see you and call on you. We will use a roll call voting for purposes of board motions, and this is to ensure that the record is clear. I want to thank everyone for continuing to use this, our meetings on the Zoom platform. We are ready for roll call. Oh,
Sorry, that's my job. Chair Marlene Cheatham,
present.
Kyle Beckley,
Present.
Michael Spall,
Present.
Olga Montez, Olga, can you?
Sorry, present.
Bob Direo,
Present.
and that is the quorum here for tonight's meeting. Also present is Jaime Martinez, Planning Director, Joe Agostinelli, Building Inspector, Jamie Kane, Zoning Board Secretary, and Linda Whitehead, Village Attorney, Land Use Council. Sorry, I'm out of sync
Thank you.
tonight.
I know how you feel. First on our agenda for tonight is the approval of the minutes from the May 10th, 2022 meeting. If everyone has had a chance to look over those minutes, may I have a motion to approve the minutes with any necessary corrections.
So moved, Kyle.
Second, Bob.
If there is no objections to approving the minutes from the May meeting, I believe let's just make this clear. We'll just do a roll call vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Did you want a roll call or are you?
Yeah, I think we should do a roll call just to make it clear.
Okay, we got a motion in a second.
Yes.
Okay, Kyle Beckley,
Aye.
Bob Direo,
Aye.
Olga Montez,
Aye.
Michael Spall,
Aye.
Chair Marlene Cheatham.
Aye. Motion carried to approve the May minutes. New business of the board, ZBA 14-2022, Water Street, Central Avenue. Owner is
The Village.
the Village of Ossining. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of this project?
Well, before we get to that, let me give a little breakdown of the project and give some input on the expectations for today. So this project is the redevelopment of the DPW organic waste yard. It sort of straddles the Sing Sing Kill. It's down on the corner of Central Avenue and Water Street with some additional frontage on Main Street. For properties proposing to build a multifamily housing development with some about 109 units, some commercial retail space in the front, and some community space on the back end of the building, parking underneath, as well as a separate parking garage that includes a fourth story public parking area that will belong to the village, along with a bunch of improvements to the Sing Sing Kill walkway, extending the greenway from where it's at right now, ending at Central Avenue, under the arch and through the middle of the property onto Water Street. And so the applicant today is kind of coming here to just talk a little bit about the project, the details, ins and outs. They're currently undergoing seeker review by the planning board. And so the goal for this meeting is to get comments from the zoning board on the seeker review and sort of any comments that you'd like to hand over to the planning board as a part of that review. They will be obviously talking a little bit about the zoning variances. So if you have some questions about clarity, certainly this is an opportunity to take that as well. I don't, so I defer to Linda here a little bit, but I don't think that we thought about doing a public hearing today. So
No, I don't believe we do. So just to supplement what Jaime has said, this is a public-private partnership between the village and Wilder Walter. The village will be retaining a portion of the property where they will be improving the Sing Sing Kill and extending the walkway along the kill. That portion of the property, as they'll show you, will be retained by the village. There'll be a public plaza area. There'll be parking provided for the village. The project is affordable. It's an all affordable project. So that's just some additional background for the board. And I think we should let the applicants come in and make their presentation. Bob, you had a question?
Yes, I believe the planning board is going to be the lead agency for this. Is that correct?
Yes, the planning board is the lead agency. You had previously stated that you had no objection to the
Right.
planning board acting as lead agency. So the planning board has begun the secret review. And as Jaime said, one of the things that we would like for tonight is to get any comments from your board on potential secret impacts, environmental impacts, that you want to make sure that the planning board has your comments on any of those. So that is part of the purpose of tonight's meeting. Okay, any questions before we let
Any
the
oth-
applicant come in?
Any other questions? Okay, I don't see any. So Jaime, do you want to let the
Yeah.
applicant in?
Sure thing, will do. So we have Chris Hahn from Wilder Bolter. We have Jim Wendling from Wilder Bolter. We have Maxwell Powell from Bayer Blinder Bell. Rich Williams from Insight Engineering. I think that's it.
Chris or Jim, did you have, or there's a couple of other people, are any of them with you, or is this your whole team?
No, yes, thanks, Linda. This is Jim Wendling from Wilder Walter. I'm joined by Chris, and Maxwell Powell is our architect. He's a principal with partner with Bayerblin, and Rich Williams is a principal with Insight Engineering. He's our engineer of record. Thank you. Looking forward to presenting tonight. Jaime
Welcome.
and Linda did most of the heavy lifting. Just briefly, we're really excited about this development. We've been working on it for quite a few years now, ever since the village sent out the RFP. As Linda said, 109 affordable units. It includes remediation of a contaminated site. We're working with Con Ed now and entering the development into the brownfield program. It includes, as Jaime said, the Greenway extension, indoor community space, 45 public parking spaces. And I think the best thing to do is to allow Rich to start and go through the plan. So on a high level, and we received the referral letter in May, on May 31st. So we've started to go through that as well. But I think it would be best to start with Rich, and we'll turn it over then to Maxwell, and we'll answer any questions and go from there.
Thanks, Jim. So I'm going to share my screen just to start by walking the board through the plans. Everybody should be looking at a set of site plans. This is the existing condition plan. Just to get everybody oriented, you have Main Street at the bottom of the screen, Water Street, which forms our western boundary, Central Avenue, which forms our northern boundary, and wraps all the way across the northern portion of the site. Running centrally through the site from east to west is the Sing Sing Kill. If you've ever driven by this site, you'll know there's an existing masonry block building in the northwestern corner here. And then down on the lower portion of the site, spanning both sides of the kill, you'll see there's actually training walls that form the boundary to the kill here. But then surrounding either side of those walls are a series of stockpiles and associated uses with the existing DPW yard. Outside of this existing development envelope, you have a forested site with very steep slopes. So what we've done, and Maxwell will talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes, is we've focused our proposed development on the western portion of the site within the existing development envelope. A lot of that is to minimize impacts to steep slopes and tree removal, particularly around the Sing Sing Kill. To hit the high level of the components of our project, we have a 4-story parking garage in the northwest corner of the site, which sits in a very similar location as that existing masonry block building. On the opposite side of the kill, we have our 8-story mixed-use building, which contains retail space on the first floor, as well as 109 affordable units and community space. We do have a connection, I believe it's on the 5th floor, that extends from our building to Main Street. So there's a direct pedestrian connection to Main Street. That was an element that the village thought was important to add. And as you heard Linda and Jaime mention, and this really relates to zoning, we are proposing a subdivision of the property with a line that runs north-south in the middle of the site. What we're proposing to do is leave the eastern portion of the site for the village, and the western portion of the site would be retained by our project team, WBP Development. In addition, some of the improvements that are being constructed are an extension of the Sing Sing Kill Greenway. There's an existing trail that follows the kill north of Central Avenue. We're going to be tying into that, running through the arch culvert, then coming southwest, where we're going to create a path that connects to the greenway, where we basically landed on the ground. You'll then have a walking path which leads you to a linear park in between the buildings, which will then allow a direct pedestrian connection from Water Street all the way up through Main Street. As far as what we're really before this board tonight and talking about zoning, as a result of the site constraints on the property, namely the steep slopes, the kill, and the forested area to the north, in also an effort to stay in the existing development envelope and minimize impacts to those features, we've really had to locate the proposed development in the northwest corner of the site. We also had to do that with meeting the objectives of the village. Those objectives were creating this linear park, having an extension of the greenway. We're also doing stormwater improvements in the kill, providing public parking on the fourth story of this garage. And just to spend a couple minutes before I talk about the variance, talk about the garage, in order to get the 4 levels of parking, one of which is public parking to the village. Again, the fourth story of this garage will have solar panels above it for green energy, but we also, this parking will strictly be for village on that 4th level. In order to make that work, as you know, Central Avenue raises in grade. What we did was we created entrances to the garage along Central Avenue. That allowed us to take advantage of the grade rising along Central Avenue and also minimize the size of this building by not using internal ramps. And I'm only pointing that out because in a couple of seconds, I'm going to talk about variances, and that all plays a part into why we designed things the way we did. As far as the variance necessary for this project, we're going to request variances for the parking structure being within 20 feet of the street. Your code requires that we hold 20 feet to the street line, again, in order to maintain proper separation to the kill or maximize separation to the kill to allow for a linear park. We're going to stay in the location essentially of the existing building. That puts us close in this corner of the property. We're 1 foot off the property line and 8.5 feet off the street line. So we'll need variances for both of those. Also, our mixed use building. We had previously identified needing a variance for the front of the building being within this front yard setback. We just made some revisions in the last set. We were able to adjust the size of this building. So we're currently evaluating that. But although we identified it as a variance required in the package to you, that may drop out the next time we're before you. We are going to need a setback from section 270.23D, which is the minimum setback for the parking or loading areas, being 10 feet to the street or lot line. Again, we have less to our parking structure here. As a result of the subdivision, our impervious coverage on this site alone is 65.6%, as opposed to the 60% required by your code. Again, that's something that's being created because of the subdivision line. If we were to take the entire property as a whole, we would be less than that coverage. In addition, we need a variance from the non-residential district properties adjacent to or containing a water course. There's a 25-foot buffer that's required by your code. Much of this existing development is within that 25-foot buffer. As part of our design, we've provided a wetland mitigation plan that meets the requirements of the wetland code, providing 2-to-1 mitigation. As part of that mitigation, as part of the work within that 25-foot zone, will be brownfield cleanup. This property is being entered into the brownfield cleanup program. Jim can talk more about that if the board wants additional information. But that work, in addition to the stormwater improvements that were requested by the village, require us to be basically working right alongside the Sing Sing Kill. So we'll be within that 25-foot buffer that's required for your code. But again, we have provided mitigation at a 2-to-1 ratio. Because of this parking garage's location, we do have building parking in the front building line here. So we'll be seeking a variance for that. And then the other two variances that we're evaluating are we're currently looking to see if the site lines between our property lines, there's a triangle that's created where you're not to have an obstruction over 30 inches. We're currently evaluating that with the village engineer. It is likely we will not need a variance, but we've listed it to be safe as far as our initial presentation to you. And similarly, we are looking at right now whether or not we'll need a variance from section B8 of the zoning table, which requires a maximum of 30% of the total street parking along the frontage. Because of the length of our parking garage versus the frontage of this parcel, we may be over 30%. As you can see, there is a number of variances, but most of them are created by the unique shape of this site, the amount of environmentally sensitive areas that we are purposely staying away from, and actually creating a linear park and extension of the greenway to enhance and preserve, as well as creating the parking that the village was looking for in that fourth level of the garage and additional parking. With that being said, I will stop sharing my screen and I'll turn it over to Maxwell.
Good evening, everyone.
Before Maxwell starts, I'm looking at the faces of some of the board members, and I know we have not seen all of that area variance information that was just given. It wasn't given to us in our packet, so that's why I'm, so if we look kind of puzzled, it's because we have not seen that in its entirety the way it was just written out. It was just said.
It is in the packet.
Yeah, and I think it's also still being finalized, but we did want to get this on your agenda to start getting you familiar with the project, and also to get any secret comments. Certainly, we're not at the point of making any decisions on those variances yet. And so that list is still being finalized, but we will make sure that you get a final list that's clear and easy to follow of the required variances.
Thank you.
And I do apologize. I went through that pretty quickly, thinking you had already seen it. So if there are questions, we're more than happy to walk you through things in detail.
Thank you, everyone. Again, my name is Maxwell Powell. I'm an architect and urban designer and a partner at Buyer Blender Bell. We've been working on this project with the village and Wilder Baltimore for some time now. And what we've done here is I just put together a little bridge set so that we can kind of go through the design. I think Rich did a really good job of sort of laying the land of what's happening on the site. But I can show with some additional plans and pictures to give you a better sense of what we're proposing here. I think for us, we were drawn to this site because of the design opportunities that it presented. We're interested in designing a transit-oriented development with affordable housing on a formerly industrial site, just steps away from the train station. So for us, that was very exciting. But I think the other element of it was to turn a very closed off site that's currently closed off to the public and turn it into an open and more porous and accessible place for the public. And I think part of that obviously is this idea of extending the Sing Sing Kill through the site and back all the way out to Water Street, right? Which would make that eventual connection back to the waterfront that much easier and that much more interesting. Back to the waterfront and also back up into the village. So I think for us, we really looked at this site as an opportunity to create an extension of the village and sort of knitting this part of the village back to the village. I think as Richard had mentioned, we're really excited because this project is very unique, in fact, and probably, one of the reasons why we're here before this board, because of the characteristics of the site and the factors that have gone into planning buildings that reinforce the broader planning vision, right? So again, as Richard mentioned, there are two buildings. There's a garage on the northern side of the Kill, and then the residential mixed-use building on the southern side of the Kill. So I'm sure you're well aware of what the site looks like. And, I think for us, when we visit the site for the first time, we're really struck by the sort of the pure physicality of the site and the multiple layers the site has to offer, including the very, dramatic and drastic topographical changes, but also this change of character from a very sort of urban place to a very natural, intensely natural place. You can see sort of in this bottom right corner, which is the, the forested portion of the site that we are intending to maintain. So here's just a sort of a blow up of the site plan here, right? So as Rich mentioned, all of the development is located largely where the existing DPW yard is, right? So again, we're trying to stay away from the naturally forested areas or the steep slopes and sort of really, concentrate the development in the areas where the land has already essentially been disturbed, right? So you can see that there are two buildings, the garage building, which is on the northern side of the kill, and the residential building on the southern side of the kill. We designed the residential building to step up. So the shortest portion of the building is on the is right off of Water Street, and the building steps up as it goes up along Main Street. So I'll show you an image of the building from sort of Secor and Main Street looking down. The intent is that the building sort of steps up with the topography of the site along Main Street. So you'll see how we sort of tried to achieve that. But I think it also gives the building sort of a really nice architectural character as well, which we're really excited about. All of the hardscape and that we see between the buildings are all improvements to what's there today. So that includes sort of repairing the walls along the kill. And as we move further towards the east, or I guess towards the north here, it turns into this sort of more natural forested state where the connection back to the Sing Sing kill would be created and go underneath the Central Avenue overpass where the connection would be made back to the existing Sing Sing kill. So with that in mind, I'm going to run us through a few plans. You get a better sense of the building. So on the mixed use building, there is one basement level or one cellar level, which will contain parking and some ancillary storage below for the building, right? So there are no other uses in there. There's no other habitable uses in the cellar, but there will be some residential parking in the cellar, most of which would include a number of accessible spaces for the residents of the building. When you get up to the ground floor, you get a sense of what we're trying to achieve with the planning on the ground floor. So one of the important things that we thought was critical for the site was to ensure that we had retail on the corner on Water Street and take that retail and turn the corner towards the canal, right? So we can start to activate the canal with activity. So we've lined the canal with retail on the western edge, amenities and lobby entrances, right here in the middle, and then the community space is on the end, right? And that was intentional. That was intentional in order to bring the activity as deep as we can into the site, right? And sort of make that connection further into the extension of the greenway, right? So that's sort of the very important aspect of the building, that it has a face on Water Street, but also has a face towards the canal. On the side facing Main Street, which is really sort of in this gully, right? Because Main Street is much, much higher as it rises up towards Secor, right? So there's a sort of a big steep slope over here. We do have some of our loading happening here. The ramp to go down into the garage is back here. We have some of our utility rooms and some mechanical incoming services that come into the building at this location. On the other side of the canal, we have our garage, and basically it's 4 levels of this exact plan that you see here. Each level is accessed off of the street. So the first level is accessed off of Water Street, and then there are 3 access points off of Central Avenue so that we can access each floor directly, right? So there's no internal ramping, there's no sort of wasted space to try to get people to go from one level to the other. And as Rich mentioned, the top floor, which includes about 45 spaces, will be for public parking. Moving up to the second floor gives you a good idea of sort of the typical residential floor plate, right? So we have a core near the middle of the building and residential units on both sides, double loaded. And then again, the sort of typical parking level plan that stacks as the building goes up. As we move up the building, you can start to see that the residential floor plate starts to set back. And that's a really important element, I think, of the massing of the building and how we're stepping the building as the building rises up on Main Street. And you can kind of see how this happens now on the 7th floor, and then another example of that on the 8th floor. The 8th floor happens to also have on the terrace solar panels. This building will be targeting a LEED Gold status, so there will be some solar generation on this project as well. And then when you get up, so that's the top floor. So the 8th floor is the top floor. And then this is an elevation. If you're, I guess, sort of standing in the canal looking directly onto the building, you can see how the building steps up. Water Street is right here. The retail is right here at the base here. Residential amenities, residential lobby right here, and then the community facility space is right here on this end here. And then the forested portion of the site is on the left-hand side of this. And then you can see how the building starts to step up as the building rises along Main Street. Right, so it's an 8-story total height for the building. And then just similarly, this is the elevation of the garage. So this is the elevation along Central Avenue, and this is the elevation of the garage along the canal. Again, just trying to use robust materials that reflect sort of the texture and the tonality of our surrounding here, which is heavily forested. So we have these sort of metal screen panels with a sort of wood-colored metal panel that sort of intersperse in the design of the facade. So with that, I'm just going to kind of walk us through some of the views that you actually have in your package. So this is the view from the corner of Water Street and Central Avenue looking back. So this kind of gives you the best sense of the project. This is the existing photo of the same viewpoint. Essentially, this is the existing DPW building. So that's being replaced by the garage on the north side, the new residential building that starts to step up right from Water Street and up the canal. And then you can kind of get a glimpse of the canal right in here. And as we sort of walk our way closer to the building, this is where you would be today if you're up against the fence that's leading into the DPW. So on the right is the mixed-use building, on the left is the garage, the canal is in the middle. Right on the right here is the retail that's fronting Water Street and turning the corner up into the canalway. And then just a little further up, this is the residential lobby entrance. And then just sort of behind this sort of wood panel here is the community facility space on the far end of the building. And I think I have one more image, which is the view on Main Street and Secor. And this really kind of gives you a good sense of the scale of the building on Main Street, right? So again, at no point is the building sort of rising greater than 4 stories above Main Street, or at least as viewed from Main Street. So you can see how the building starts to step down and kind of nestles back into the site. So that was a really quick overview of the overall design concept. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Kyle, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, thanks, Marlene. My question was about, and maybe I misheard, on the parking garage, is that covered on the top with solar panels or is that open? Is the solar panel just on residential?
I think there was some change. Jim, can you speak to that? Because I know we were talking about that.
Yeah, the plan is for solar panels, the garage as well as the residential building.
Yeah.
And I know that's not necessarily our purview because that would be SECRA and planning board, but I was just interested based on, I saw one picture show one thing, but heard another. So glad to see you're doing solar panel on both.
I have a question of my own. Are you doing a floodplain review? I was just curious about going into the basement on that area that is prone to flooding.
Floodplain has taken most of our time on this.
Okay.
Rich, you want to take
I'm just
that?
trying to figure out if there's a car in the basement, is it going to end up on the 3rd floor when the first rain hits?
So the first thing we've done is we've set the elevations around the building, and particularly at the entrance to the basement parking to be above the floodplain elevation, so to prevent waters coming in. One of the things we've talked to the village about is whether or not parking would be allowed down there based on the code and based on FEMA's regulations. We believe that, and we've had our floodplain, we have an engineer who specializes in floodplain analysis look at this, and yes, it is permitted. We're also doing a floodplain study, which is being reviewed by the village engineer at the moment. We've already submitted it just to assess any potential impacts from this development on the floodplain. But the intent in setting the elevations was to prevent water from entering into the basement. As part of the building design, and it hasn't been completed yet. Obviously, we'll have to be looking at the design of the foundation for hydrostatic pressures. That's one of the elements of the floodplain code. Also, we'll be probably looking at installing some pumps just for an extra backup and safety. Again, with all mechanical equipment being kept above floodplain elevation as required by your code. But yes, we're looking very closely at it and working with the village very closely. It's a great question.
Are you also looking at impervious coverage, like pavers and things that will allow the water to drain back and not, continue to hold on to the water, or more grassy areas where needed? Like, I know it's a concrete building, but is there anything else that, that you're looking at to kind of help some of the drainage issues?
Yes, we've done a full stormwater pollution prevention plan, and I didn't want to go into too much into detail, but I'm glad you asked, because there's a bunch of good stormwater things we're doing. We have a green roof on part of the mixed use building to help limit some of the impervious surfaces. That terraced area, a large portion of it's being designed as a green roof. We also are looking at different paver materials, particularly on the side of the parking garage, to see if we do want to do some sort of grass pave. Final decision on that hasn't been made, but we have treated it as an impervious surface already in the stormwater calcs to be conservative. We're providing stormwater quality treatment units on all of our stormwater discharge points before anything discharges to the kill. So we'll get water quality treatment. We've also done a larger scale analysis to make sure, because believe it or not, one of the things I often struggle to explain is when you're this far down on a river or a stream or a reach in a larger drainage basin, it's actually beneficial to let the water go faster. What happens is, by the time the peak of the overall kill comes down the hill, if we hold our water back too long, we can actually line with the peak. If you ever listen to CBS 880 News, you'll always hear the Passaic River is flooding 3 days after the rainfall event. And that's because down at the end of the river, it takes that long for the peak to come down. So, we've been working with the village engineer on timing when we release our stormwater and strategically releasing it earlier based on our downstream position. In addition to that, we are providing a stormwater basin along the kill. That is being developed in concert with a series of piers that will cross the kill. One of the issues the village has historically had in maintaining this section from flooding is during the first flush, a lot of the debris being garbage, large tree branches, come down and hit the culvert at Water Street and form a dam under the culvert, so the water backs up into the kill. And the first place that it is going to fail when that happens is the DPW site. And then from there, it overflows Water Street and into the parking lot on the west side, in between the railroad tracks and our site. So what we've been talking to, and this was actually part of the original RFP, was building a stilling basin off of the side of the kill, which integrates with the kill. And we're doing that basically up into the site, closer to the culvert, in an area where the topography allows to help dissipate velocity. We're creating basically a shoaling basin. It'll be a little deeper than the kill itself, so that debris can get caught and collected and more easily maintained. That basin has been strategically located with a series of piers to cross the kill, so that we can try and catch that material in the large, deep valley to the east of the site. And that the hope, and this is something the village engineer has been talking about for a while, the hope is by catching the debris there, where we have a better opportunity to create higher floodwaters, is it will no longer clog the Water Street culvert and create the problems for Water Street and downstream parking lot. So, sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but
no, that's a great answer. Great answer. And then I guess my last question is, environmentally, I know that, that's a great wooded area, but I'm sure that some species of some bird that nobody's ever heard of, or some fish that nobody will ever eat, lives in that area. So the question is, how are you protecting them?
Great question. So we have provided tree removal plans. A lot of a lot of the eastern portion of the site, we're actually not touching any of the trees, particularly on those steep slopes. We don't want to. The area above the existing DPW yard, between the yard and Main Street, has a lot of smaller growth trees. We are taking trees down in that area, not because we want to, but actually from a geotechnical engineering standpoint, we have to. Those trees probably should never have been allowed to grow. They're actually compromising the slope stability. Just to the right of Maxwell's cursor right now, there's a house. Behind that has a series of retaining walls that actually ties to the walls on the DPW yard. One of the things that the village negotiated pretty well with the developer was making sure that the majority of those walls are actually going to be on the developer's property, not the village's. So we do have to make sure that those slopes are secure and stable for future. So there will be some tree removal along those slopes in order for us to properly maintain the slope. And again, it's been recognized even by the village engineer that probably should have already happened. Other than that, the other tree removal is really there's a handful of trees necessary to come down that are invasive in and around the kill as part of creating the linear park and creating or redeveloping the training walls for the kill. There's a small number of trees being removed for that 4th floor entrance to the garage off of Central Avenue. But we for the trees that we are removing for the development, we are providing mitigation for them. And again, anything on the eastern side of the property where the majority of the forested area is, we'll be preserving that. And that'll actually become village-owned property, so it stays preserved.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Okay, and I'm gonna go back to Linda and Jaime. So for tonight's meeting, anything that we would like to bring back to the planning board as they go through the secret process?
Yeah, so, and I think you've already identified some things. They're all things the planning board has already been focused on. Obviously, the floodplain, the stormwater management, the flooding issues with the kill, the tree removal, wildlife, those are good comments and things that the planning board is also focusing on. So, along those lines, if you have any other things like that you think are of concern that you would like the planning board to make sure they're taking a look at. Yes, Michael.
Yeah, a couple things I think they should look at. We discussed a little bit about each one so far. Is that this is going to be an 8-story building, so I'm sure that that's not going to be missed by the public. It's going to be at the same height as the building across the street, the new condos that were developed across the street. So, it is a fairly substantial building. So I would think any kind of viewscapes from above would be something they would have to look at. Also, I went down to the site, I drove past it, and there's a significant amount of debris, and not only in the kill, but also in the garage, old trucks, things of that sort. I assume that all of that's going to be taken care of. And the last thing would be, we saw what happened further up on Main Street with regard to erosion and the new development in that area. So I think erosion control plans for the steep slope to make sure we don't have a repeat of that situation would be something I'd be concerned with.
Okay, they are definitely have been really from the beginning looking at the viewscape issues. And we'll make sure that the erosion control plan is also looked at carefully.
Good.
Anybody
Is
else?
there anyone else?
Sorry.
That's okay. I was muted. I was talking and I was muted. Is there anyone else?
Between you, Marlene, and Michael, you guys all covered the things that were, turning gears in my head, which was environmental things and And let's not, let's learn from past mistakes and prevent a repeat of what happened down the street. So,
Right.
Yes, I agree. I am concerned about the floodplain and the drainage, but I understand you guys are going to address that in the secret process.
Okay. I think if there's nothing else, I guess
Kyle, you have your hands up.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kyle. I missed you. Sorry.
It's okay. I'm trying not to hold it up today. So for the top level of the parking garage, that's public, non-residential. Is that accessible parking? Was that an elevator shaft on the?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's an elevator on the corner, and there will be 2 accessible spaces up there.
The reason I ask is because it might inherently get used from another project that is coming before the board where they don't have any accessible parking. They might be able to make one spot, but that is now going to be accessible from this development if it goes through. So thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else? Okay, if there's nothing else, may I have a motion? I guess we adjourn this to
Yeah, so
July?
yeah, and we can work with the applicant, try to get, a more specific list, finalized list on the variances for you as they're looking at these things. Bring that back to you. Obviously can't make any decision on the variances until the planning board completes the secret process. But if we have more to talk about on the variances, we'll bring it back in July.
If I can, real quick, I'm going to share my screen, Marlene. I just want to make sure because maybe this was not, identified. It is actually in there. So they sent a letter.
Yeah.
There's a letter. It's called cover letter. Water Street
Inside cover letter. Yeah.
5/23/22. That letter details very specifically what all of the variances are, and so I think that what they did tonight was try to go through the details of some of those. It might be worthwhile just to hit them again real fast before we go. It is available to you there. I mean, I guess it wasn't maybe clear in the packet. Trying to.
No, I saw that in the packet. What I was asking for is this is very broad brush. I think what I would like to know is if there was a more detailed, it just says variance for parking structure to street, but there's no.
You want the numbers?
There's no numbers with it.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
So that's what I was saying, because normally we get kind of like the area, like a
the worksheet.
sheet,
Yep.
the worksheet that shows all right, and that wasn't.
They're gonna have to give you the worksheet at some point because they also have to do that for the habitable floor area. So each type they'll give you what they're supposed to be and what they're proposing and what the variance difference is. So this will be further broken down with more detail as we go along.
Yeah, so some of the finalization of those numbers is still happening. And we went over some of the details like on the habitable space today, for instance. So we do definitely want to get that to you right now, but these are this is the listing essentially. We don't anticipate anything beyond the listing of the types of variances that are going to come forward. Now one of the things we did talk about earlier today was the habitable space. I know that it didn't seem like Rich and Maxwell, you brought that up today. So I want to know whether or not you wanted to talk about that today or whether you'd rather sort of get into those details at a later meeting.
But before we jump into that, just for the board's benefit between now and the next time we're before you, as part of our application package on our drawing set, we have it on our preliminary subdivision plat, as well as on our drawing EX1. We do have a zoning conformance table, which does walk you through, the items in the zoning. Some of the items which aren't part of your typical bulk standards aren't on that table, obviously, which is why we cited them in the letter. But one of the things we're developing and we'll be able to provide to you is a simple table, because we have a bunch of different memos flying around. So we've actually consolidated it into a simple table that we'll be happy to share with you, which talks about what's required, what's provided, and the variance we'll be seeking. So
I mean, it's on Insight site plans,
Okay.
the table.
Yeah.
So,
that'll be a good preview for you as to what's going to be on the simpler matrix we're going to provide. It's that large table on the right side of the sheet.
So this is that bulk table
Oh.
we refer to.
Yeah,
Um,
we're in the process now of simplifying it just to the variances, because that's
Okay.
a lot to go through.
Yeah. Plus, there's still some numbers we're still working out, like the layout of some of the apartments. So to give you the exact numbers, that's still kind of we're still in progress of working on that. So.
Yeah, actually, Jaime, I do have a one pager. If it's helpful for the board for me to kind of go through that, at least to get that conversation started, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful. A lot of the other variances that are being listed here are ones that, you know, the board is pretty familiar with them. They're sort of similar. This is one I think we should try to get the conversation started earlier rather than later.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so I'm just sharing my screen now. All right, so so we are seeking a variance on the code language relating to the minimum unit sizes that's within our district. You know, obviously, you know that the district has minimum habitable sizes for 1s, 2s, well, all the unit types. So the 1s require 600 square feet, 750 for the 2 bedrooms, and 1,000 for 3 bedrooms. But this building is also subject to design regulations from New York State HCR, the Homes and Community Renewal Program, which specifies minimum and maximum unit sizes. So you know, what we're trying to do on this site is really try to strike a balance of creating well-designed and efficient units that meets the needs of today's tenants, while also not oversizing the units to the extent possible, right? So, you know, which of course adds costs and ultimately reduces the amount of affordable housing that's available. So, so what I'm showing here on the screen is, you know, so 4 of our most typical units in the project. So there's a 1 bedroom here, a couple of 2 bedrooms on the right here, and then the 3 bedroom. And what I wanted to do is sort of demonstrate how we calculated the square footages and sort of demonstrate also what the various square footage numbers mean for us. So let me see if I can zoom in here. All right, so let's start with the 1 bedroom apartment. So I've listed sort of 3 square footages, right? So the first number is the gross square footage, right? Which is sort of the most commonly used square footage that, you know, projects generally use to describe unit sizes. So this is, you know, it's all inclusive, includes the exterior walls, includes, you know, the center line of demising. So that's about 691 square feet, right? Which is a pretty standard size for a 1 bedroom apartment. Based on the calculation for HCR, which excludes exterior walls, but does include everything else within the apartment, it comes out to 655 square feet, right? And the minimum per HCR is 600 square feet. So we're a little bit over, you know, what's required by HCR. When we do the same calculation, based at least on my understanding of the village's code for habitable floor area, we're coming out at everything that's sort of shaded in this gray, right? So we've excluded the areas that do not count under the code for habitable area, which is everything in white. So we've taken all of that out, and we're at 519 square feet based on habitable floor area per the village's code. And of course, the village's code for livable floor area is actually basically the same calculation as the HCR number. Right, so it's so there's some relationship there. So you know, I think really what this ultimately means is when we calculate it based on habitable floor area per the village, you know, we can include things like walk-in closets or oversized closets, or, you know, in some cases second bathrooms, you know, which sort of meet the needs of today's tenants, right? So you can see on this plan and some of these other plans that we're showing, all of our units have, you know, walk-in closets, for instance, which is something that's really desirable as an amenity within an apartment in these types of apartments. And so to a certain degree, we're kind of, you know, the more closets we put in, the worse it gets. Like we got to make the unit much bigger elsewhere, right? So, and I think, you know, when we look at these units, and I can show you, you know, a 2 bedroom right here, you know, they're pretty generous and pretty spacious units. They're not like shoe boxes, right? And these are units that are typical projects that we're doing, both market rate and affordable in the region, and certainly what Wilder Balter has been and are doing today as well, right? So, so I think, you know, we're here seeking the variance because we think that these are efficient units that, you know, helps us get to providing, you know, quality units that have amenities that tenants are looking for, but of course under the habitable square footage calculations, we are under the requirement. So you can see in the 1 bedroom, we're about 81 square feet under the minimum, and that's typical. In the 2 bedroom apartments here, so there's 2 of them. Let me go with this one first. It's 940 square foot, 887 for HCR. So we're quite a bit bigger than the minimum HCR required, but we're still under by about 27 square feet or so, based on the habitable square feet. And again, most of that's probably just the closets in this case. And then similarly, another 2 bedrooms of our most common inline 2 bedroom, similar situation here. It's around 950, HCR just over 900, and then the habitable is at 709. Again, we have two walk-in closets here. And then the 3 bedroom is really, really tough because of the requirement to go from 750 in the 2 bedroom to 1,000 square feet. So this 3 bedroom is about 1168 gross, which again is a pretty sizable apartment. For HCR, it's at 1,100, and then the habitable is at 819, whereas we'll need 1,000 square feet. So I think the other challenge, and particularly for the 3 bedroom, is if we were able to, let's say, gain another 200 square feet of habitable floor area, that would put us over the maximum allowable per HCR. So we're kind of stuck in a little bit of a sort of between two rocks, I guess. So what we're seeking is a variance to allow us to proceed with units that are a little bit below the habitable floor area requirements of the village.
Can you, Maxwell, you touched on something that I think is really important for the board to understand here. You referenced maximum size units under HCR, which limits how big you're actually able to make these and continue to get funding from HCR. So can you talk a little bit about how that works and how it impacts your decisions on design?
Yeah, I think, the intent of HCR is to, they provide minimum square footage to ensure that you have, apartments that are a certain size that are, useful for people who are going to be living there, right? Like that's really important and fundamental to creating good housing for everyone. But they also provide maximums because they don't want to sort of see, units that are oversized, right? In a way that you're, basically, if you build too many large units, you're not going to be able to have as many, units for more people, right? Like I think that's sort of the aspect, and not to, of course, factor in, construction costs and all of that stuff. So for a 3 bedroom, the range that's allowable for HCR is 900 square feet to 1150, right? So we're sort of right in the higher end of that right now at 1100 square feet. So if you imagine us adding, a couple hundred square feet of habitable, we'll be at whatever 1300 square feet, right? So we'll be over in the 3 bedrooms. On the 2 bedrooms, it's 750 to 950, but I think we're pretty close on the 2 bedrooms, or we're not too far under here. And then on the 1 bedrooms, the range is from 600 to 725 for HCR square footage.
Yeah, so one of the things that we, in our internal conversations and discussing this project and other projects that have come up before is that one of the challenges with the way that our code is written now, and I anticipate that it's gonna be re-examined over the next year internally and potentially changed, is that it discourages cabinets or closets, right? So you could, under our code, you could potentially put in a sort of one of these Chinese closets that aren't built into the wall, and that doesn't count against it, but having a built-in closet does, right? Having a large bathroom, so if you have an ADA accessible bathroom, which is typically a little bit larger than a regular bathroom that is not ADA accessible, is going to cost you more against your habitable space. And so, what ends up happening is pantries, extra closets, these being things that I think, most people want to get in their as amenities in apartments are sort of, developers are at a disadvantage in providing these. Our code is kind of written to discourage that, while still maximizing the kind of space that you want to put into units. So they're very oversized habitable space numbers, and the way the code is written is just kind of puts a stranglehold on developers to design in strange ways. And so it's been a problem, not just with this project, but with a lot of projects where we're encountering issues, finding ways to conform with these habitable space requirements.
It is definitely something that is going to be being looked at by the village as Jaime said, over the course of the next year or so. And whether it's even appropriate or necessary to have the habitable square footage requirements.
Oh, wow.
Well, because it discourages, you're going to end up with smaller bathrooms and smaller closets, and that's not really desirable.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't make better units. It just makes units with, bigger hallways or maybe a bigger living room, but nowhere to put your coat.
Right, and discourages accessible bathrooms because the accessible bathrooms have to be larger.
Larger, right. Bob, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I take some exception to the concept that our habitable space requirement is unnecessary. Our boards, all of them, the village board, planning board, everybody. Hold on, let me finish. It's really hard to come up with these, and I understand that this is unusual in that for the funding purposes, there's a maximum as well that has to be taken into account. But to discount the habitable space requirement as unnecessary, I don't agree with that, and I don't think we have that as so that we reduce the size of bathrooms and kitchens and whatnot. The idea would be to have less units so that all the units had the right amount of habitable space without sacrificing the amenities. That's all I wanted to say about this.
Okay, I think, well, before we start mixing apples and oranges, I know they're all in the same fruit bowl, but I think what Jaime and Linda were really saying is the way the village has put in our current code does not fit 2022. And I think that that's something that needs to be looked at a little differently. I think that, nobody says we take away habitable versus livable, but we also need to look at where we've changed. Not all houses built in 1952 or 1950 or 1930 or 1929 had closet space. So now we're living in 2022, there's a different look, and we just need to, I think that the question is how we look at where we are currently in the year that we're in and what people are looking for when they're going to look for an apartment. If I'm going to look for an apartment, I don't want a Chinese cabinet. I want to know, can I have a walk-in cabinet, a walk-in closet? I think that those are the things that people are looking for. And I think that that is something that needs to be on the forefront of where the village is moving to. And, I know that this is not going to get solved tonight. Thank you, Jaime and Linda. I wish it could be, but it's not. So we have to work with what we have that's in front of us. And, you're coming before us with area variances, and those are what we're going to be looking at for the livable space.
Habitable, not livable, habitable.
I'm sorry, I just did that. I just did that wrong. I knew when it came out of my mouth, I said, I knew that I said it backwards.
That's part of the problem.
Right.
What the other thing is, just to consider, last point on what Linda and Jaime had said. This is also not a regulation in every district. And therefore in residential districts, you can have livable only without habitable. So there's an inconsistency throughout the village where certain districts kind of put developers in this situation of creating habitable space. But if they were building this, say, if they were building a two-family home in a residential two-family zone district, you're not obligated to follow any of these rules. So you have residential districts where apartments are actually smaller than you would in the downtown area. So, a lot of this is also discussed amongst the staff because of you're putting basically larger apartments in apartment buildings on Main Street, but you can have a smaller unit somewhere on Spring Street.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know,
The distances are not good, and we have to address that, but tonight's not the night.
yes.
No, but I think
Yes.
for tonight, it was important, and this was, I think, a really helpful explanation
Mhm.
of why they can't meet those habitable minimums as defined by your code and
Right.
the conflict with the requirements for
APR,
HDR.
yeah, for state finding, the financing of the project.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as
Yes.
affordable units.
Okay. If there is nothing else, I don't see any more hand raised. I don't see anybody jumping up and down. I think we can go on to have a motion to adjourn this to the July meeting, following the planning board, who will be doing the
Secret.
secret review. Yeah, I know.
Mhm. So,
Um,
so moved, Bob.
may I have a second?
Second, Olga.
So it has been moved and seconded. Um, I will say, let's do a roll call vote.
Bob Dureo,
Aye.
Olga Montez.
Aye.
Kyle Beckley,
Aye.
Michael Spall,
Aye.
Marlene Cheatham.
Aye. Okay, gentlemen, we will see you in July.
Thank you. We're looking forward
Thank you.
to it.
Have a good
Good
night.
night.
Next on our agenda, if there's no changes, is ZBA 04-2022, 83 State Street.
Yes, so 83 State Street is an adjourned matter, but they are currently working on marking up their, they have marked the area where they want to remove the asphalt. And so that's, I'm not sure, Joe, actually, did you, I sent that email out earlier today. I'm not sure if Greg and or Gary went out or organized an appointment with the person to go out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're scheduled to go there tomorrow. So if they are going forward with removing the asphalt and putting it back to its original, then there will be no need to continue with the zoning board and it can be removed from the agenda.
Okay, so
We'll know by
I
now.
think,
We'll
so I
we'll
guess
have that answer for you at least by the next meeting. Sorry.
that's okay. So that means we would adjourn this again to the July meeting in order to remove it from the agenda if everything is taken care of.
Correct.
All right.
And 16 Campwoods is the next project ZBA.
Well, do we
Yeah.
need to make a motion to adjourn this first?
Motion to adjourn till the July meeting.
May I have a second?
Kyle.
Roll call vote?
Bob Dureo,
Aye.
Kyle Beckley,
Aye.
Olga Montez,
Aye.
Michael Spall,
Aye.
Marlene Cheatham.
Aye. Okay, so this, so ZBA 04-2022 is adjourned to the July meeting. Next on our agenda is 16 Campwoods. I know that from our last meeting, there was some information that was requested. I did not see it in the on the website as being provided. So I am assuming that this is also adjourned to the July meeting.
Correct. We haven't received any updated materials from them just yet, so we're waiting on those items.
So may I have a motion to adjourn this to July?
So moved, Bob.
May I have a second? I'm sorry, Joe, did you have something to add?
No, I don't think you did.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second, roll call vote.
Bob Dureo,
Aye.
Olga Montez,
Aye.
Kyle Beckley,
Aye.
Michael Spall,
Aye.
Marlene Cheatham.
Aye. Unless Jamie added something else, I believe that is our agenda for this evening.
It is.
Okay, want to thank everyone for coming.
Did you want to do an advice of counsel or not?
Yes,
I would like to, please.
to adjourn this meeting first.
Yes, and you have
Yes.
to go off of this Zoom.
So
And then,
adjourn.
okay.
I will,
So may I have a second to,
hold
wait,
on.
may I have a second to,
Second, Kyle.
all those in favor of adjourning from
Aye.
our regular meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
All right, hold on one second. Now, before you go, before you leave, I just need to check, Jamie, did we get an advice of counsel sent out to everybody? If not,
They did. It's the newest email I have. It's a different link.
Yes, I did
It's a
send it
different
out.
link.
okay.
You did.
Oh,
Okay, see you in a minute.
all right, see you in a minute.
Okay,
Bye.
stop the recording.
I have a housekeeping thing. Jamie Kane, are you still on? Or did you go away?